I will send you back to the depths of Hades!
The God of War series has established itself as one of the most iconic and critically acclaimed franchises in the gaming industry, spanning many titles across multiple generations of consoles. And it all started in 2005, when the original God of War game released on PlayStation 2 and captivated players with its intense combat, immersive storyline, and epic set pieces. In 2009, an HD remastered version of the game was released for the PlayStation 3, and no official version of the game exists for the PC. However, there are two ways for playing it on PC right now using emulation. Today, we will compare both of these options and try to find the best one. So let's get started. First, we'll look at emulating the PS2 version of God of War on PCSX2. The PS2 emulator. By default, the PS2 version of God of War displays in a 4:3 aspect ratio. It does, however, support 16:9. You just have to turn on widescreen mode in the options menu and force the 16:9 aspect ratio in the PCSX2 settings. Now, while the game does officially support 16:9, the way it handles the field of view in widescreen is not the best, as it keeps the 4:3 horizontal FOV, which makes it so the top and bottom of the image become cropped on 16:9. Fortunately, by using the widescreen hack available on PCSX2, you can correct the FOV and expand the image. Doing this will create moments where it shows parts of the screen that were not meant to be seen. However, these moments are very rare, and I would not consider it a problem. The only other thing to note when playing in widescreen is that the UI is stretched, although again, not a big issue. PCSX2 also allows you to increase the resolution and other graphical improvements, as seen in this footage which was captured with the game running in 4K. Increasing the resolution for the most part doesn't introduce any problems, except for this one glitch I've seen where there's a halo around objects in certain parts of the game. It does seem to be an issue with misaligned frame buffers, and while it's unfortunately impossible to correct it 100%, it happens very rarely and shouldn't stop anyone from enjoying the game. Aside from that, the game runs and displays perfectly, especially if you play it in the original PS2 resolution, which gets rid of the bug mentioned before and makes the presentation pretty much exactly like a real PS2. This is the way I would prefer to play it, as I think the graphics don't hold up very well at high resolutions, but the choice is available. As for performance, I've had no problems running the game at a perfect 60 FPS on my PC. The game is quite easy to run. Although keep in mind, this is running on an emulator, so it does require a reasonable CPU. For reference, my CPU is an i5-9600K. And here are the settings I've used for this video. Overall, running it on PCSX2 is a great way to play the game, especially at native resolution. But we have one more option to look at. Next, we're gonna take a look at running the PS3 version of God of War HD running on RPCS3, the PS3 emulator. This port was developed by Bluepoint Games and released in 2009, along with God of War 2 HD in a package called God of War Collection. Now, despite being officially described as an HD remaster, this version unfortunately does not fix basic issues from the original PS2 version, like the stretched UI and lower field of view. It seems like the only differences between this version and the original one are the higher resolution, which is 720p on PS3, and upscaled UI textures. Still, the visuals from the original are preserved in this version, which is ultimately a good thing. So how does it look on RPCS3? Well, it does seem to display perfectly without any visual glitches. Even the misaligned frame buffers that happen on PCSX2 when increasing the resolution are gone here, and you can run the game at a native 4K without problems. There are some very minor differences, like the water surface, which looks a little darker on PS2, the hydras, which look shinier on PS3, and the troops in the distance in this scene. But these differences are so small that nobody would notice without a side-by-side comparison. As for the FOV, RPCS3 has a game patch that is supposed to correct the FOV, but it did not work for me at all, unfortunately. Now let's talk about performance. Despite being RPCS3, which is quite a heavy emulator due to the PS3's complex architecture, the game runs completely fine on my PC. It runs at a perfect 60 FPS, much like on PCSX2. Once again, a reasonable CPU is required to run this game on RPCS3, obviously, but as far as PS3 games running on RPCS3 go, this one runs very well. I'll leave a link in the description for a CPU tier list for RPCS3 that you can use as a reference. And here are the settings I've used for this video. So, this option is a great way to play the game. The only downsides are the lower field of view and a possibly higher CPU requirement. After comparing these two options, we're left with two great ways to play God of War on PC. I'd say the best option is probably RPCS3, as long as you have a good CPU and don't mind the lower field of view. But if you want to play it the way it looked when it came out in 2005, or you don't have a CPU that can keep 60 FPS on RPCS3, then PCSX2 is the option for you. Whichever version you choose, you will undoubtedly experience the epic adventure and brutal combat that have made God of War such a successful gaming franchise. So, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like and subscribe for more. If you want to get in touch with me, follow me on Twitter. Anyway, thanks for watching and I'll see you on the next one.